to look at you dead on. This is the happiest hour of my week getting to talk to you. I was having this conversation with the marketing team this morning. They were like, isn't that over? It's been 8 weeks. I'm like, yeah, but
like, I thought it hadn't been 8 weeks. That's funny. I thought that the end of quarantine was next week, right?
Yeah, I thought so too, but then I realized I had done the math wrong because we launched so March. These dates are just like burned in my brain now. March 11th was the day I got the heads up that Boston's going to cancel tonight. Get ready. The 12th was the day that they canceled school in Denver, and then the 13th was supposed to be a birthday party that went sideways. So those dates are in my brain. I made the quarantine room on Sunday night after reaching out to a bunch of staff members and being like, I'm thinking of doing this thing. Nope, too soon. Don't use the word quarantine, too soon. I was like, okay, got it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and get the property down. And then it just like kind of took off. So yeah, we launched it, and then we did all the rollout of like, well, I figured out what it was going to be. And so it started on March 23rd.
Well, it's so funny because remember when I said, man, I feel like it's been a really long time.
You were right, and I was wrong. You were right.
And that's how bad I am about time, that when you said, no, you got like 4 more weeks left or something, I believed it. And all the days have been running together anyway. So I'm really having trouble knowing where I am and what's happening at all times. So there's that.
Both. Well, we've set up a landing page, and we're going to be driving people towards it and just reaching out and saying like, here. So they won't be, because I assume most of the people in here are not specifically runners, but they probably benefited somewhat from the anxiety management. And like the most popular videos by far have been your quarantine kitchen. So as we get ready to launch the Plan B meal plan, when we have more bandwidth a little bit later, because we're going to do another build funnel to get people into it, to get through the rest of the summer. Now is not a time, I think once we have clarity on what's going to happen with the fall, like it's looking pretty certain that Denver's not going to open. But I don't know what the rest of the country's doing. From what I hear,
it seems like most districts don't really know what they're doing yet.
Yeah, because it's hard. In Georgia, you have to listen to the governor, but the CDC is also there. So I've been getting mixed signals from people we train in that area. So it's a long way of saying I don't know that people are going to be like just trying to figure out what the needs are before we spend a lot of money launching something. And you're going to be amazing at the same time retaining people. So the quarantine tag will only anyone who comes in through that tag is not going to get all the running emails. They're basically going to get product updates. Hey, want more Dalia? Want more endorphins? Want more outdorphins? Anything along those lines.
Awesome. That's exciting.
Because who doesn't want more Dalia?
I was trying to turn I'm trying to turn this thing down. It's not working. So I had floors put in my house this weekend, and the people who came and did it, they were really good about social distancing. And I don't know if it slowed them down at all, but they were always working in different parts of the house. They had their masks on. We had our masks on, and we sat outside most of the time, because I don't know how many people can relate to this. When you are in exactly the same class as the people who are working for you, it feels weird. And then you also feel like you need to defer to them, like you treat them like a peer, like a coworker. And I'm sure there's a way that you could feel like I'm the client and you're the person who takes care of me without being weird and classist and disrespectful. But I wouldn't know, because I'm usually in the same, or at least I definitely feel like I'm in exactly the same economic group as the people who are working for me. So I just give them space.
You would probably love, even though it's as white as it could get, Downton Abbey and Gosford Park. Because
I remember Gosford Park. I have never.
Dynamic is about precisely that. Like, you're not one of us anymore. We're not friends. Give us the word to get out of our face. Very nasty. Which I don't. Is that how people really feel? I don't know.
I wonder. Well, probably. I mean, there's so many books about it and like so much media about it. Now, Gosford Park, I thought was pretty amazing. You're talking the movie, right?
Yeah. Well, Gosford Park was the movie, and then Downton Abbey was the TV show that based on the movie.
I didn't even know that. Oh, okay. I was going to say I would have been more likely to watch it had I known that. My parents have watched it, but they love anything that comes on PBS. So I was pretty skeptical. I was like, look, I don't know.
I find it's not the first thing I would think of if I was going to recommend media to you. If I was going to recommend media, let me tell you, I almost called you and then I didn't because I was like, I bugged her over the weekend. I'm not going to do this now, MK. Stand down. But there's this new podcast and I'm all about it.
Oh, what's it called?
All the MK boxes except for the running box, but I don't need it to. Okay, so this podcast is called Wind of Change.
I've heard the commercials. What is it about?
All right. So it's this reporter for the New York Times who covers like national intelligence stuff. One of his contacts like said to him, would you believe that song Wind of Change by the Scorpions was actually part of a PSYOPs campaign to end the Cold War? It was written by the CIA. And
is it true?
That's what he goes. He's like, I've heard this off and on for 10 years. And so finally I decided to pursue it. And it's an 8-episode series of him pursuing it. And if you ask me, yes, When to Change. So I started this when it came out on the 11th and somehow I hadn't heard about it, which shows you how difficult marketing is. Cause this is like my strike zone and nothing
and it didn't
got in front of me. Yeah. And I, at like 10:30, Alex was snoring and I couldn't sleep. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? It's a podcast. And I happened to see an advertisement for it, clicked on it, and then I didn't sleep.
Did you finish the whole thing?
Like,
okay. I need to listen to it.
Better than, 80.
Better than Tiger King, because that was your last media recommendation.
Yep.
Really? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm in then. I'm in because I keep hearing the ad, which means that they're running it on podcasts that supposedly have similar audiences. So Spotify thinks I'll like it, and now you think I'll like it, so I'm in.
I think specifically episode 3. If you hear the first episode, you might be like, shrug. When you hear the second one, you'll be like, I don't know why she recommended it. And then when you hear episode number 3, you'll be like, I'm in.
Okay. Well, I have to see, because I saw you posted something about people who, is Russophile?
Russophile.
Yes. There you go. And so I thought, I don't know if that's me. Even though for like half a second, I thought I was going to marry somebody who still lives there because they're from there. And I did spend some time there, and I speak... Let's see.
Wait, you spent time
enough to get to? Yes, I speak enough Russian to get to a bathroom and maybe get a train, and to ask for help. Those were my main concerns. Or maybe to say I'm not ready to get married. Like these are the things I need remember. To go home. Yeah, I need to go home like right now. Wow. But I probably would really like it. And did you see that last? No, it probably wasn't her last movie. What's that woman's name from South Africa?
Charlize Theron. Yes, Atomic Blonde. Yes.
Wasn't that great?
Blonde, you will love the bejesus out of this podcast.
Okay, good. Whew. That was a good vibe. Yeah.
All the same flocky, because it is really just flock, right? With I don't know.
And I feel like there were some Russian spies in there, right? Aren't there always?
Probably. I don't know. It was Scorpions are from Hanover. They're a German band.
Oh, okay. I think I barely remember that. So, Susan, did you listen to the whole series already? I wonder. The way that Tiger King sucks you in to binge watch it, that's just something that, I don't know, I keep finding, I don't know what that thing is that makes you listen to the end.
It's hard to find. I rarely get it in podcasts that are structured as serials. Like Limetown, no one's come close. The first season.
Oh no, really she skipped from 2 to 8. Don't tell me you listened to all of 8 and then you're like, wait a minute.
Oh, you got to go back, Susan. You got to go back.
And congratulations, by the way. So how did it go? Every time I went to watch the rest of the stream, I had just missed the stream.
Yeah. She did really well. I'll let her tell you in her own words, but she did really well. We have not yet matched all the funds. We were going to wait a few more days to make sure everyone had their opportunity and Susan could do a final call or two. But yeah, she'd raised nearly $1,000.
Awesome. Can you put the link out there again?
It's in Susan's Facebook is complicated, so it's not. It's in a private group. So if there had been an easier way to share it, we probably could have got her more money. But
yeah, okay.
There's that.
Technology. Yeah, I've been having a lot of technology fights this weekend. I am really excited about a lot of new things. So this weekend, I think it's maybe Friday, that do you watch a lot of Netflix?
I do. More lately. Yeah. We have not yet started because I'm not sure I can emotionally handle it yet, becoming with Michelle.
I don't think I'm ready to hear someone express having a hard time. Yeah. I know that's very vague. No, I don't want to hear anybody talk about a hard time. Does that sound awful? So I am looking forward to Camille and Issa Rae's couple comedy, which I think is Friday. So I'm very excited.
What's it called?
It might be
the photograph. No, I'm going to confuse them.
I believe any of those, but I don't think I've ever seen. That's awesome! Congratulations.
1,400. Oh my God, they broke my bank.
Well, I feel like I've never seen a movie, and this could be wrong. Tell me if you remember one with an interracial couple that, like an American movie, where neither part of the couple is white.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm. Me neither.
So I'm very excited, and I think they're both extremely funny.
Yes.
So
and you're not the first person I've heard say that either. That they're excited about it for that reason.
Yeah. Like it's a twofer because they're hilarious. I'm like really excited. So, and yesterday in more good news, I know I sent you a couple of TikToks.
You did. I love them all. And I'm wild about the Dr. Seuss. I was just like,
yes, that was mind boggling.
Yeah.
And it's funny that sometimes you look back at old films or old books or whatever that you remember liking.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh my God, this storyline, this is so rapey, like almost every freaking 80s movie. Or like, oh, wait a minute, is that crow supposed to be black? Like going back and watching Dumbo, I'm like, what the actual, but when I was little, I didn't get it.
Song of the South and Brer Rabbit.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
I don't know how old I was, but I felt like I was getting the vibe then.
Yeah.
I was like, this seems, but I didn't get the Dumbo thing as a kid.
Oh.
And I don't think I got it in all I can think of is Baloo.
The Lion King is pretty explicit too. Like looking back now, I had a real hard time with my kids.
That is a shady. Yeah. And even then it felt like that was outdated. And I was hip to that. I was like, I'm like, well, maybe they're not being derogatory. I don't know. But Jungle Book. That's it. And to know that the pygmies in Willy Wonka were originally enslaved little African. I mean, they weren't the pygmies. They were the Oompa Loompas. Mm-hmm. You know, it's just so problematic. Like everything's problematic. So yesterday on TikTok, they did a huge, like, it was just beautiful. There was this movement essentially to celebrate Black creators on TikTok because TikTok has admitted that they have been censoring certain users and
don't we start on the censorship. Nakia can't do live streams. She's been censored for 30 days for something she posted back in October. Meanwhile, Facebook won't block accounts of people that are DMing her trashy stuff. Like outright, you can DM anyone anything you want and they will not stop you. But if you put one thing on your Facebook page that might be somewhat questionable as a person of color, like
yes. And what's interesting is when you try and automate some things, I don't know. I bet there's like a lot of things that go into this horrible decision that they made. And even the decision to be so transparent about it. I guess it's best at this point, you may as well just tell everybody because everybody was talking about it. Like everybody was getting that vibe that there were shadow bans. But their explanation was, and like the CNN piece was that they were trying to reduce bullying on the app. So if they thought you had an identity that was susceptible to bullying, they would bring down content that would make it easy for people to find you. And I will say, like, I remember way back in the day when on Twitter, I had something in my profile that said something about feminism. This was a little before, for a while there, like their feminism felt like it was completely dead. And so I felt more compelled to constantly self-identify as a feminist. Now I feel like, it's understood that there are a lot of issues that women are facing, and we can't act like feminism's work is done. And then the focus on intersectionality and everything, I don't use the word as much anymore. And this was all pre-Me Too. This is when everybody was still being molested and raped, but like nobody ever said anything about it.
Exactly. Why do you have to talk about that? Oh
exactly. So I put it in my profile, and it did make it easy for people to find me. And the comments would be so random and so hostile. I'm like, I think they might actually be using a bot to send these out, because I'm like, I haven't even posted anything feministy lately. Anyway, so that was a major fail on TikTok's part. But what was cool was to see allies working together, and just everyone, really my whole For You page was just 100% people of color. I don't even really think, well, Black people, not just people of color. I don't think everybody was even ready for the demand, because I will say that, people, not everybody was ready. That's what I'll say. They were just like digging deep, like thinking I should post something today. But it was cool because I got to see people, like you said, like you would want to listen to that podcast, and yet you didn't know it existed for a while. So there were a ton of people that I would want to follow that I didn't know existed. Like people who are in animation, singers, poets, like all kinds. Poets not as much, but I'm going to give them a shot. So I was trying to be supportive. It's not always my jam. But yeah, it was really, really kind of a cool day. And I was late to the party because I looked early in the day and I'd seen something, and I thought, I've been trying to make my TikTok a little more brown. And I thought, mission accomplished. I see some people, but I didn't see any explanation about what was actually going on until like late in the evening. But anyway, I got in at the last minute, but it was just cool. And I thought it was overall very positive, but there have been people who've even complained about somebody posting super, super racist stuff, not a little racist, like, so-and-so is going to lynch so-and-so, or Mexicans and Black people should all be in cages because they're related to animals, la-di-da. And so people complained about it, and TikTok reviewed it and decided to leave it because it didn't violate community guidelines. But then other people who were literally not even talking about anything kind of polarizing, but they were being Black because you can't turn it off, and had their video taken down. And so people were getting really hot about it. So I hope that change is coming. Who knows? One negative thing about Facebook trying to automate so much is that negative content tends to get a lot of engagement.
Yes.
And so it gets rewarded. And that's our own human nature driving something negative, because when you see somebody say something hideous, you usually want to say something. If somebody says something nice, you might not care. Like, it takes a lot for you to actually want to say something. You have to maybe care about the person, or care if they see it, or maybe have not talked to them recently. There's so much.
I think too, it's easier to say something negative than it is to say something positive. And here's what I mean by that. If you say something positive, if you say something negative as a warning, right? A warning is seen as, well, I appreciate hearing, so I can make my own decision, right? When it comes to saying something nice, it could be really unless it is absolutely not at all self-serving, that you probably don't want to hear it. And if it isn't self-serving even a little bit, then it probably doesn't apply to you. Does that make sense? So I think it's harder to just.
What's an example?
Good news is just harder to share, right? Like, well, I mean, and that's the nature of it. So if there was somebody knocking on all the doors in the neighborhood, and, it's easy to get on next door and be like, there's this person who's like knocking on doors. Have you seen him too? I don't know what to do. Here's the description. I don't think he lives in the neighborhood. That's which is why I'm not on Nextdoor, right? Because there's a lot of that. And, you know, people who don't mind it are like, no, I'd rather know and decide for myself, and I can ignore all that stuff. Like, okay, that's privilege, but whatever. But when it comes to like, hey, did you hear about this person's really good news? It's either theirs to share. Why are you telling me this? I should be hearing it from this other person. You know, there's almost sort of like, it's harder.
And it's funny. It's like it's hard to come up with something meaningful to say. Like even when somebody posts something positive.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm so excited. My grandbaby was born, and they post a picture of the baby. Well, how many different ways can you say, oh, they're so cute?
Exactly.
Congratulations. So and after a while, you just like.
It's just that it's a conscious effort to have to, I'm going to comment on this, even if I'm saying the same thing everybody else is.
Right. Yeah. Well, and usually if I know the person well and everybody's already said the same thing, I probably will send them a DM about it, so that maybe if they wanted to add something or start a conversation, then we could do that, because people usually don't have full-blown conversations on the main page. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'm learning a lot of rules of the internet lately.
There's so many rules of engagement, and it's hard. Let me tell you what's hard about being white, Dalia. It's really hard to be white.
Explain the struggle.
It's real. It's so hard having Black employees. But no, when the Ahmad story, I Run with Mod started, we had just put that podcast out. And the podcast had been found because it's like we were one of the first hits before the New York Times. So like the day the New York Times article hit, if you search for Running While Black, we were the top hit. And I just think that's such a perfect, I didn't think it was the perfect storm
title until after, because I was like, well, it's like, if we're saying there's lots of things to think about, leave people alone. But it was a whole nother thing. Yeah.
It was the whole series that I'd had in mind. The biggest threat to Running While Black is not the fact that you're Black. It's the way people respond. And I had another one in my head about running while overweight. It ain't the weight that's the problem. It's the way people treat you. When you are perceived to be in a larger body, that's problematic. When you are perceived to be too thin, when you are perceived to be, I had this whole list of where I feel like it's almost like a gotcha. You start listening, thinking like, oh, being overweight. Whoa. And then we take it somewhere totally different. Like, I just thought, anyway, so after that became a thing, I'm getting pings about it. And now it's in the New York Times and it's your hometown. And I'm like, well,
it is weird.
I know that it has hit some of my employees much harder than others. There's a reason you haven't seen or heard from some people lately. And I don't want to push them in any way, but now I'm getting requests, and I don't want to be another white woman telling, well, this is what this is how we feel about it, but I'm not about to, in a moment of trauma, push you guys up on the platform either and say, oh, Dalia, you got to take this since you're Black.
Well, I'm feeling a lot better. And honestly, I think we can have better timing on like the Black TikTok day. I just felt really, I was trying to think of just like fortified, I was trying to think of something that sounded less churchy, but that's all I'm coming up with. Like I felt lifted up. I'm just going to go all in with the churchiness. Do it. And I felt renewed.
Dinner on the ground.
Like, what else can I say? Like, I just felt like the spirit. Yeah, I just felt like there's something very comforting about knowing that someone is walking shoulder to shoulder with you through an experience. And my husband okay, so this is a whole nother thing. I'm glad this is in the group, so I'll go ahead and say it. So another thing that happened this weekend, even though we did the social distancing, is my husband had a lot of friends over. And I say friends like they're not my friends, but they're my friends too. And they were much better friends before this administration. I'll just say that. I have had more trouble maintaining friendships with people who just cannot understand that I'm never going to agree with you about certain things. Our experience is different, and I'm not trying to convince you, but I feel like if you can't love my brother, then you don't love me. And if you're not afraid of me, but you would be afraid of my literal brother, when we have so much in common, then that's a problem for me. And I'm never going to overcome that. And I was raised to think that I should, and just like, oh, what would Jesus do it away?
Yeah.
And I don't have the emotional energy for that anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said something to my husband at the end of the weekend about how, I've never had you have to sit with like 8 of my Black friends and everyone has this opinion and experience different from yours. And like, I'm just sitting there not saying, let's change the subject. But he said, do you know 8 Black people? And I was like, at first, that took my mind a completely different direction. Because I was like, oh my God, I don't know 8 people that are Black that I could get to come over. I don't. And that's another part of, what's that activist name? He talks about racism all the time. He's an anti-racism activist. And his last name is White. And I can't remember his first name. And he is also white, if that helps. And he does a lot of work. He's pretty famous. Like, he's put in so much work, he gets threatened by the Klan. I can't remember what his name is. Somebody might know his name. But yes.
Yes, I did get a haircut, Sarah, by the way. The hairdresser came over to the house and gave us all haircuts on the phone.
Oh! Okay, does that make it any better to get by with your not great blow dryer?
Non-existent blow dryer, the crappy blow dryer. Yes. We're going down. We'll go down and get that fixed later. But these are the problems of being liberal in the South.
Yeah,
that's the hard part about being liberal in general. I want to share. There's a response. I don't think the response needs to come from me, but if everyone says
is busy
no,
being miserable and emotionally exhausted.
Yeah, it's not fair to put that on you. So it was like a couple of days. Like, here's if no one responds to this email, then I'm not going to send the next 2.
Yeah.
If no one wants to respond to the New York Times, then I'm not going to send.
I thought somebody had bitten. Well,
no. Or if they did, they didn't tell me, so I didn't send anybody the interview requests because I figured.
Well, it's funny. It's like TikTok gave me the renewal that I needed because it is true. I don't have enough. That's another thing about being a minority that can be very difficult, especially if you are a minority member who is assimilated to a large extent. And then if you're Black American, it's even more complicated because depending on where you live, whether or not you're going to assimilate was never an option. Yeah. So you can look up one day and find that everybody who has something in common with you doesn't have skin color in common with you. And it's very rare that I find other Black people who want to be where I want to be doing the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
So like when I was younger and I skated a lot and hung out with people who either rollerbladed or skateboarded a lot, hardly anybody was Black. There'd be like one biracial kid, maybe. And
wait, are you telling me you've never run into another Black person buying your specialty granola?
Never. I know it's shocking. It is very shocking. Well, it's funny because when I usually run into the super healthy, foodie Black folks, they're next level. Like it's like a religious thing. And usually it'll be people who are eating clean as some part of their faith. And so then there's a disconnect there. So it's tricky. I saw a really interesting TikTok where this girl who is white presenting, she's biracial and she came out very, very, very fair. But she strongly identifies with her Blackness. So she's always talking about it on TikTok. But she did a cute little 15-second thing where she's like, oh, going into a queer space, getting ready to have a good time. Oh, somebody said something racist. Going into a Black space. Oh, somebody said something homophobic. Going over here with my engineering friends. Somebody said something misogynistic. And so that's pretty much been the experience. Like you go someplace that you think is going to be safe because it's where one part of your identity is.
Yeah.
And then there's an issue, and then there's an issue, and then there's an issue.
That's why I keep coming back here. I'm like, I don't want quarantine to end. I need an excuse to talk to you. I don't know that I'm going to be able to get you for an hour and have a drink with you every Tuesday.
Well, it's so funny. Now that I know, that really takes the pressure off. I just felt like I couldn't come up with enough.
We've never had a conversation less than an hour and 7 minutes long, according to my phone.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
That's the shortest conversation.
I wonder how many people are like, because like, I know when some of my friends call, my husband's just like, I'm just going to go to the other room. Because like, I know you're going to be on the phone for hours. And I wonder how many people's partner, like who does that when I call, they're just like, oh, see you tomorrow, I don't spend a lot of time on the phone, but it's like if I made a call or if I picked up the phone, I am I'm ready to be committed. Otherwise, I would hide out and just text, so it's
Totally.
just, which is why you don't just call for, unless you have time. But anyway, It's just been interesting. So I love the idea of creating safe spaces. And another one of the TikToks I saw yesterday, I should have sent you this one, but somebody was talking about the need for allies and how affirming it is to have that feeling that somebody is walking with you.
Yeah.
And you can look back really far and there's always somebody who doesn't believe the hype. There's always someone willing to put their life on the line for what they believe to be important. Like I think about John Brown. I'm like, that's kind of ally I want. Not that everybody has to die, but anyway.
Yeah.
But he was willing to. He thought slavery was so wrong before anybody was really saying it was wrong, that he put his life on the line. He gave his life because he just felt that strongly about what was right and what was wrong, and felt that all humans, are children in the eyes of God and should be treated as such. Mm-hmm. So there are definitely always people who are trying, but you don't always hear these people and you don't always know where they are. And then people, not everybody's super brave. Even Whoopi Goldberg was on the other day talking about the Michael Jordan documentary.
Mm-hmm. And I was waiting for all the episodes to drop and I'll just binge it.
Oh, it just delayed. Say that again.
I said that it's called The Last Dance. It's a documentary on ESPN. So I was going to wait for the whole. I think there are only 9 episodes are out so far.
Oh, okay.
So I was just going to wait for them all to drop and then binge the whole thing.
Yeah, I heard them say that you can stream the whole thing on ESPN now. I'm definitely not going to watch it because I'm not into sports. But
But I've heard a lot of people say that. They all say, really? I'm not into sports, but I remember this period. And if you thought that gossip was women's domain, this is proof positive that not so much. All of these men like bicker and like telling on each other like children or, teenage girls.
I'll let you watch it and review it. And if it's good, then I'll have to go back. But she was saying like she wasn't mad at him or in any way frustrated with him at any point when he was so silent about politics in the media or other things that affect him and the community he came from, because she said it's not for everybody. And, she's always been really vocal. And I also think she's kind of cool and that her life, from what I can remember, has always been super integrated. But at the same time, she's maintained her own identity and understood that you can celebrate who you are and also love who everyone else is, and engage. But she's got that.
There's also another dynamic to it. And that's the hardest part for people to understand, I think. And it's a conversation that on an academic level, if you look at fourth wave feminism the waves started around the time of the Clinton administration, and it wasn't really picked up. It became louder around Me Too and the Kavanaugh hearings. So fourth wave feminism talks about power structures. And to me, this is the most interesting conversation ever, because this is the thing that people don't want to hear. Like on Apple TV, they had this called The Morning Show with Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston. And Matt Lauer type character. So I watched that, and the assumption behind it all, and this is the part I keep hoping they'll explore and unpack more in season 2, because I'm like, knowing the people behind this, it could be so much more than it is. Jennifer Aniston is on the way out at the beginning of the series, and she's like the highest paid anchor on the show next to the dude. Her Q scores are higher. She is more genuinely liked outside, but is worried about keeping her job because she is old for a woman and they want to replace her with someone younger. So her whole power move in the beginning is to like save her job and rub them up against the wall, which is that's where the drama comes from, because it all comes together on the night that it's revealed in the New York Times that there's a sexual predator. And then towards the end of the 10 episodes, it's like everyone forgot the first 3, that this woman she could have done something. She was complicit. And she's wandering around the studio like, I said nothing. I said nothing. I just and I'm like, that's not fair. Like we started off in an interesting place talking about who had the power, and then ended on a place, well, like, you had all this money. Yeah, but if she had said anything, she couldn't have kept her job. And there's something to be said for recognizing who has the power in a situation. So I tell you all that to underscore that Michael Jordan had a platform that he never used, which is why he was able to keep it for so long. The second that he did, he might have lost sponsors. They could have seen him as risky. He might not, because this was before, like, there was one, right? And when you're the one, what do you do? Because if you screw up, the next 20 won't get a platform, and you'll be the reason why. So that it's easy to retroactively look back and say, well, you didn't do enough, Jordan. But it's like, and thank you for not, because we wouldn't have Steph Curry now. I don't know. I don't actually watch.
Well, and I'm sure I
just know he plays basketball.
Well, I'm sure people gave him grief about it in real time, but it's one of those things where you can't make that decision for someone else. That's like outing somebody. That's never cool.
Yes.
It's also not cool to be in the closet, but it's no one's
job
right to drag you out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I've got some friends who are, they're gay. And that's why I talk about the privilege of certainty, because when you're not, that's two communities that don't want anything to do with you, and this amorphous room in between. So, there's something to, if we could just like give everyone a little bit of space to be who they are, because the lie we tell ourselves is, if you had done, then I would be, and that we don't know that.
That's true. That's true. It's been really interesting to see people recognizing that if you're going to dismantle the patriarchy, even though some women don't even know that they should want to do that.
And that's fine. I try not to beat people over the head with it, but I'm always pushing it on some subtle level.
Well, it's just like, oh man, do you remember the end of that? I used to watch when I was a lot younger. Well, that makes sense because Spike Lee hasn't made a movie in a minute. But I think it was School Days, maybe, where at the end, the kids walking around the campus just screaming, "Wake up."
Yep.
I feel like that, like, all the time. And even when I saw it as a kid, it felt so powerful, even though I had no experience of trying to tell people, like, man, this is a scam, you guys. Like, you should be mad. You should feel disenfranchised. But because a lot of people, when they get that little bit of power, it's enough to feel like, I don't want to make any waves because I want to retain this power.
Yeah. I can do more with the power. I can't do anything without it.
Right.
When you realize you can say less with the power, you realize why it was given to you in the first place. That's the trap.
That is powerful.
Yep.
That is the trap.
People have that's why Hillary Clinton was made Secretary of State. That's why Barack Obama did it. It was the best way to keep her quiet is to give her so much power she will muzzle herself.
Oh, that's foul.
It's true.
That makes a lot of sense. It's just funny. These power structures, they're in place not because they've been sloppily put together and are going to be easy to topple. And a lot of thought has gone into this. Yeah. So I guess you just have to decide. So I think I told you I stopped reading this book. I might have told somebody else this. Did I tell you I had to stop reading Fear of the Black Body or Fearing the Black Body? It's a kind of new book because I never call stuff triggering, but this was like impossible to read. Impossible. And it felt like it was written in this very distant, clinical way. And I'm like, I can't read 300 or however many pages of, here's all the pseudoscientific evidence we used to have to explain that people who look just like you descended from apes and the rest of us didn't. I'm like, I can't. If it had been an article, fine. If it had been like, it wasn't written through the lens of someone who I think was identifying with the group that was being spoken about. Because I think even if it had been spoken about differently, emphasized how abhorrent it was and how this thinking was used to justify crimes against humanity, then I think I could have read it. But it felt like it was from, we're so evolved now. We're so post-racial now. Look at this crazy stuff. Yeah. And just it's like no punches were pulled. It was just like constant. So anyway, so I stopped reading that. And I was reading it as research or part of research for the book I'm working on. So I said, I'm going to move on to interviewing people because I wanted to interview trans people and gay people about body image issues and how, concerns about weight and internalized homophobia can overlap.
Yeah.
So one thing that really stuck with me that somebody said was that he got to the point that he decided he was willing to be himself at any cost, that he didn't want, nothing was worth it. No amount of privilege that he had as a cis person or cis presenting person was worth sacrificing himself anymore. Yeah. And I just thought, man, it's just the way he said it. I just got to the point where I knew I was ready to be myself at any cost. Like, I didn't care if that meant my parents wouldn't talk to me again. I didn't care if it meant I'd be homeless. I didn't care if it meant I wouldn't have a job. I knew I was ready to be myself no matter what.
Yep.
That clarity makes it so much easier to move forward than when you're trying to navigate, how do I retain certain things I want access to?
Yeah.
How much can I be myself? Mm-hmm. But there was just so much power in that. And it's just been interesting. It sounds like it may have been rough at points, and it always is, right? Like, it just, it screamed hero's journey in like a real live person's life. So I just, way better than that stupid book. Someone else may get something useful out of it, but I already knew. It was like I'm reading the colonizers' history. I'm like, why do I even need to do this to know that colonizers said you ain't shit for years? Like, I already knew that. I don't need to read this. This is abuse. I'm like abusing myself. So anyway, that happened. But all in all, I feel so much better. I feel lifted up. I'm ready to rock. I'm ready to do interviews.
Good.
I'm ready.
I think we're, like, now that you mention this, I think we're going to interview. So when I decided to kind of start a sponsored athletes program, the reason I did that was to make sure I was kind of, I wanted to find a way to highlight different communities whose place in the running world might not feel open or secured, because if I can't look and see me reflected, how do I know I belong? And also to make sure that certain people didn't come in my purview. I'm like, sponsored athletes will do it. So my personal favorite is a dude named Cade, who is transgender, and we're getting ready to launch our Pride merchandise, all of which is going to raise funds for the Trevor Project. All 100% of the proceeds, awesome. It's all drop ship, so no calculation necessary. Check going directly to the Trevor Project and Project Semicolon, which are the two nonprofits that kept him alive. And we're getting ready to do a podcast. We've been collecting questions. We're like, ask anything you want. Anything at all. There's no question too ignorant, because there are some conversations you can only have on the long run, because what happens on the long run stays on the long run. Running is a really weird community in the most beautiful sort of way. Like, the connections are deep but not wide, I like to say. Okay. So when you're on a long run with someone and you got like 8 miles, let's say that's 90 minutes, like, I'm got to be with this person for the next 90 minutes. You will talk everything out to the finish in a way that you wouldn't in real life, because when you're on the long run, like, there you just don't have that many options. So the things you end up talking about, the things you end up, and the way you end up talking about them end up being very different. And it's also like a place to ask ignorant questions, and no one's going to jump on you. And those places are so rare, because you can throw something out and be like, so wait, your penis was mailed to you. Does this mean you have that kind of box? Which is a literal question. And I didn't know that. So I had no clue. Well, I guess there's some things you could Google, because that was something I saw yesterday. Somebody said, what, is your Google broken? So I guess that's my fear sometimes. Yeah, see, I'm not. And again, that's the privilege, which is why I'm like, bring your questions to me, because I can have this conversation with Cade. Cade doesn't need to have everybody emailing and treating him like Google. So this is a time and a place where you can give the questions to me, and in a safe space, like, I will get the question there, because a lot of people don't want to go to Google and see. I mean, really, Wikipedia, like, if we know we can't cite it somewhere, and how do you like, knowing there's a disinformation campaign going on, that bots are putting it up, I'm not going to ding anyone for not wanting to go to Google, so, but I will also be like, if you need an answer, come to me, and I will figure it out. So we're doing that with Kate. I'm really excited. You should come and you should ask questions. A lot of people, I think, have been afraid to submit them.
Well, I'm really excited. Yeah, I do have a lot of questions. And just because I've seen a lot of people explain how personal and inappropriate it is to ask about somebody's genitals, unless they've greenlit it and said, this is the window where you can ask these questions.
He posted a picture saying my appendage arrived in the mail, which is
That's amazing. I don't understand that at all. I would have thought if there was anything in the mail, it would have gone straight to your doctor's office.
I thought the same thing. So the question was posed to me exactly like this. They DM'd me. They sent they saw the Instagram and DM'd it to me and said, "Is it like a Nudicle?" I bought those for my dog, but they went straight to the vet.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
And I was like, a Nudicle? Like when you have the balls taken off and they give them fake balls?
Why do they do that?
I don't know. It's that. Okay. I guess if you're a dude with a dog, it might be important to you. I don't know.
Well, because I'm a cat person. Do they do that to cats?
I don't know.
I
had to Google what a Nudicle was to understand the question.
I need this interview. This is going to be very educational. And
right, I'll copy you on the email. And we'll get you in there. It's going to be fun.
Yes.
Yeah, but this question kind of and I realized I didn't know the answer. And this person DM'd it to me because they felt safe. And I'm like, okay, well, if this is my brand and this is what I do, I create a safe space to be whatever and an avenue so that, I would have to know someone really, really well. Even I feel like I don't know Kate well enough to DM that question, but I can always call.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even ask. I wouldn't. You think about how many
you see it and wonder, but you wouldn't ask.
Right.
And maybe
exactly.
you Google it, but you wouldn't even know how to form the question.
Well, it's so interesting because even when you're dealing with someone, even an intimate relationship,
the pictures, I wouldn't.
Were there pictures?
No. There were no pictures. I'm saying once upon a time I Googled mask with a mouth hole because I couldn't remember the word balaclava. And for a decade,
I could have told you that wasn't going to be good.
I'm terrified of pictures I would see. There are things I won't Google, even in an incognito window, because I don't trust that. Imagine if I tried to figure that out. I don't want to know what it would show me. But
yeah. Well, I just really, at least now with all these privacy laws, in theory, you can have that completely purged.
I don't believe that.
You think no matter what, there's always an index that's MK, and it's in the bondage and latex section.
I'm sure
she'll like this ad. Send it to her. Yeah.
Right. And I'm never getting out of it. It's like jail with no get out of here free card.
That's so crazy because I guess that means there must be some things that you search for that they think this means something about what you want to see forever.
Yeah.
And some things that you look for that it would only show you for a little while. If you're looking for a couch, you won't always see couch ads.
Yeah.
But if you wanted a mask with a hole in it in the mouth, then.
There's only one thing you could want.
And it says something about what you'll be interested in for the rest of time. Well, what about all these curious people who are coming into their own and just wanting to do research? That's how I approach things. I'm like, I bet there's a book about this.
Google has not listed you, the freak. It has me. It's not fair.
It's very strange. Yes, honestly, that is weird. But I will say there are browsers now that do a better job of telling you when there are trackers on a site like Firefox or DuckDuckGo, but it's not as good of an engine as Google. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe it, Erin.
I don't believe that either, Erin.
Yeah. I don't think privacy, the way that we were raised to existed in the Roe versus Wade context, ever truly existed or ever will again.
Well, even knowing that Google Pixels are accessible, or the Google Pixel ID or whatever is accessible to small businesses, it just the concept that your data is being treated or monitored or whatever all the time, not just by Big Brother anymore. We always knew that was a thing, but now literally everybody, even Kroger, knows all kinds of crazy stuff about you. I bought something for a baby shower.
Oh, and it thinks it's pregnant.
Oh, for months they were convinced I was pregnant. And I'm like, I don't know how to purge that. It would be different if you were online, but of course I want the reward program. That's just the price you pay.
This is going to make Wind of Change podcast that much more interesting for you when you think about all of this and the implications from the 80s to today. The difference back then was we didn't have an online tracking system. It was all pieces of paper and Intel and notes in a computer. And now they
don't have to do all that work. Now, do spies just work from home now?
Huh?
Do spies just work from home now?
It's data collection and collation. Well, I mean, they don't go that deep into it, but I mean, think about it. If there was an idea that you wanted to share, actually, they do talk about that briefly. They don't go into detail, but if there was an idea you wanted to spread, PSYOP, psychological operations, is very different now than it was then. The medium is different, but the goal is the same. So like the whole part of the point of the podcast is not really to figure out if the CIA wrote Wind of Change. I mean, that's the thread, but rather exploring like the disinformation period we're in now. Is this something that we started during all the stuff and all the people that we talked to that made the Cold War happen, which was mostly a war of soft power, not military power?
Oh, I need to listen to that.
It's a lowbrow way of presenting a very highbrow concept, which is what separates.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite. Well, even I was listening to something this weekend about just being clear and concise, and not using. Exactly.
I'm not going to do it.
I'm just like, how? And then they were like, when I look at copy where the person gets straight to it, sometimes it's just so profound. But I'm just like, I don't know how to do that.
I don't either. I don't care. It's probably.
But I'm really impressed with people who do. I've been listening to Heavyweight. Have you heard that podcast?
Yes. Oh my God.
I love it. The way those stories are put together, it doesn't matter if it's something you never in a million years thought you would find interesting.
Yeah.
Every episode is somehow interesting. I'm like, how do you do that so consistently? And I used to really like This American Life, but every now and then there'd be an episode that I was like, oh boy, I just can't get into it.
Yeah.
But he knocks it out of the park, or the whole team, whoever, really knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
But I'm excited.
From content for the past couple of weeks. It was the downside of something happening, like I stand with Maud, is what I think of as the wokening, and everyone decides to. So like there are articles. I have yet to see another podcast where, or another article like Alison Desir wrote a beautiful piece, but a couple of magazines that I won't name here, white writers told black stories, which remind me.
So you haven't even seen one other outlet aside from that one article you just mentioned. No one else actually asked a black person about the.
No, they didn't let a black person do the writing. They hired a white person to talk to black people and report. And on my Twitter was full of, I was honored for these people to trust me with their stories. And I'm not going to ding on a writer for taking an assignment. I'm going to ding on the editor for being like, really? So yeah, I was, and then watching everyone try to, because Alison Desir is a wonderful person. She's an activist. She is an incredible athlete, but she's not a household name. Like even in the running community, which is tiny, the superstars in the running community, like I'm not sure. So I put it this way: she has like 6,000 Twitter followers, or 6,000 Instagram followers, and I'm quite sure none of them are my clients, because when I went and looked, it's like not followed by any of the same people that you're following. So
okay.
Yeah, so she's not the name on everyone. She should be. She should be now. She should have been after that Outside magazine article. But still, everyone wants to have the story. Everyone wants to talk to the right. You know what I mean? Like there's still a disconnect in the way it's being shared. So I had to sort of stand back and say, I'm going to let all of this pass, because also white women trying to lift up. Allison is doing a course, and she's teaching how to be an ally. But the way people are talking about it and the way people are sharing it curdles me in a way that I can't.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
Well, see, because I was thinking
you do better. Everybody listening, you all need this. And it's like, oh, if you can't see that, maybe you need it too from the way.
Well, see, I would think the only circumstances under which you should share that is like, I'm taking this class. Who wants to take it with me?
Yes. Not you all need it. You got to do better.
But see, that is really how everybody's been doing it. So one of my.
And that's what I think of, by the way. That's on that. That's what I think of as the posturing. If you're watching,
that's what people have been doing.
This is what the wokening is. It's where you start prescribing other people the medicine that you just discovered without discussing your own need to participate or your own desire to participate in it. That's problematic. When I'm saying people like, oh my God, Lexapro, it's amazing. It's because I take it. And it made
it's so funny. Yeah. Everyone I feel like feels comfortable talking about this because it's so obviously wrong. Whether or not justice will be served still remains to be seen. But because it's so obvious, people feel comfortable saying, oh, look at this. Shame, shame, shame.
Yeah.
Georgia needs to do better. Brunswick needs to do better. But no one wants to look at, actually, racism's everywhere. It's like in the air. So to think
but then
you
they're
haven't.
not upset about Breonna Taylor. And I'm like, if you're upset about Ahmaud, why not Breonna? Well, she wasn't a runner. When did you start running? She was 26. 26.
Exactly. People don't care. I mean, it's just like you've seen it. It's so similar. Like you said, when you look at any power structure, look at how the waves of feminism, they come and then they go and they come and they go, and distractions come up to distract the people who are on the receiving end of the abuse to stop pushing for progress. Because the truth of the matter is, typically, no one, I'm not even going to say typically, no one hands over more rights, benefits, or respect to marginalized people. Yeah. People fight for that. Even like, how did we get a 40-hour work week? Did some, big boss say, oh, it's so wrong to have all these little kids in coal mines? No. People fought for that. People died for that.
Why do we have free public school education? Because we were humiliated when France sent an emissary over to the United States and saw children tied to tables in their homes. And that's the origin of the public education system.
Well, and I guess they decided they just wait a little while before they start just using you up as a member of the workforce. But I mean, at least you get a little bit of a reprieve, I guess, in childhood. But nobody ever gives this stuff away. I think people need to accept that some people are never going to get it, but you don't need for everybody to get it for there to be massive change. No. And you don't need for everyone to agree with you on your Facebook page when you explain to them that everybody's being a racist dick. Like, the fact that you said it can be enough. The fact that you tried to educate people can be enough. Not everyone's going to agree before the change happens. And sometimes people will never agree. There's still people who, somebody told us our marriage was an abomination in 2007. No, they said it in 2009, even though we got married in 2007. So people don't. And interracial marriage had been legal for a good while, not 100 years or anything, but at least I think at the time,
since the
40 years. Yeah. So, but still, not everybody's going to agree. People still think we're going to break up because they imagine the differences are just so major they can't be overcome. Like we're a fish and a bird getting together. But anyway, so I say all that's
fun, and they make really neat. They're like the best fighters.
That's true, right? That would be great. But I just say that even if not everybody agrees with us, we're making progress, and I'm excited to see that somebody's taking her class on how to be an ally. Yeah. Somebody. And
somebody's going to need it. And those are people that, hopefully, I guess I'm going to have to go back and find the link and share it here because Allison Desir is a truly incredible person. I just wish, and, I'm still kicking myself for a conversation I had earlier last week where I was like, I don't think any of our audience knows who she is. And the pushback I got was very warranted. She is a person in her own right who has a platform of her own right. And I'm like, yeah, but she's not a marathon runner. And there are only a handful of marathon runners. Like when I posted Alafine Tumuliak's heart rate data on my Facebook page, a lot of people commenting didn't know who she was either. And I'm like, the fastest woman, the in Northern Arizona elite. She's on the Olympic marathon team. She won the Olympic marathon trials. She's not a household name either in the running community. It's not. She's not out. So, and it's not even a diss on her because not being a household name has nothing to do. I should be a household name. I think the quality that We're Weaker is amazing. I think you should be a household name. The quality of you do, but one has nothing to do
with it in
terms of the power structures and the gatekeepers and who has an audience.
Well, so, that's true too. But then I think it just takes some
sharing her courses. I'm sure they're worth taking. It's been hard to watch the way they have been shared. And I was like, well, let this die down before I start sharing the links too, because I'm afraid that anything right now I say will be in response to what I'm reading, which will end up making the same noises,
Yeah.
Like some people some people think they don't need this course. They're wrong. Are you taking?
Well, I hope she's going to keep that going for a while because I'm almost to the point where every time somebody posts something that asks somebody to do emotional labor for something that you don't have the energy for, can we just share that link and say, if you don't care enough or love us enough to pay however much this is, there's nothing else for me to say. Like just to constantly exploit just the labor. Oh my God. Like I saw one on one of your other employees or another team member's site, Facebook page. And I was just like, you're asking her to do work. And this post clearly reveals she doesn't have the energy for that. And I just left it sitting there too. I might have had the energy for it, but I decided to save it for like, well,
that's why I always said I will always back you guys in what you say and what you don't. I'll never push. I'm always going to offer you. This came my way. I don't think I should. I don't think
it's exciting.
Me, but we don't need to be in the New York Times so badly that I'm going to take an interview that shouldn't be mine.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, the thing is, it seemed like it required that you be multiple things. Like you be comfortable speaking, have the energy, be an active runner, not somebody who ran that one time, and be Black. That was like a lot of stuff. Well, for me, because I'm not a current runner.
Well, I think that's just as valid, right? Like I'm always interested in talking to people like, well, fat people don't run. Or maybe you don't make clothes that fit them. Or maybe they don't feel they can't find shoes that tie.
Well,
maybe there's a different limiting factor, a barrier to entry that we have not yet considered to wipe off an entire demographic as well. They don't. You got to start with the why. And I'm going to be exploring those whys and getting myself in trouble. I mean, and sometimes it starts to be in the skinny white woman that sits down at the fat podcasters table at a conference that you've never been to before. And sometimes it works. But you got to know what it is you're asking for when you sit down and have the value proposition, because it's not like I sat down and asked you guys for education. I sat down and said, hey, I know I can't speak to this. I need someone who can. And I would like to buddy up, not to make you my tutor, but rather a tool in the kit serving a broader population, because what I can do by myself is limited.
Yeah, because people wouldn't find it strange for you to ask someone who specializes in something, who has a lot of experience, to partner up. I guess it's just the way that people approach it. And it's a sign of a bigger problem. The assumption that certain people are always available to do more work for you.
It's a compliment.
Huh?
I asked you. It's a compliment.
Yeah. It's like, no, because everybody is asking me.
But yeah, your question started with I, and there's your problem. If your question starts with I, you probably need to think twice about who you're asking and what you're asking for.
Yeah. Well, I'll end on a horrible flashback. Just the constantly being asked to be the one to explain things.
Oh, no.
When I was in second grade, some probably liberal teacher had a brainstorm in my hometown of Brunswick and pushed for all the second grade teachers to start forcing kids to integrate in the cafeteria. And the way they implemented that was you had to find a Black buddy. You have to sit by your Black buddy. Well, everybody wanted to sit by me because apparently I was doing a damn good job of assimilating and I wasn't scary. I was relatable, I guess, and I wasn't too culturally distinct as far as they could tell. And because they'd heard my grandma when she picked me up, they thought I was some kind of foreigner anyway. So maybe I wasn't even a scary Black person. Like they heard about all the scary Black people. But imagine what it feels like for the child, for everyone to keep saying, sometimes verbatim, oh, but you're a good one. And sometimes just implying, oh, but you're a good one. What kind of damage is that? So that whole experience, the teachers thought that it was going to be a good experience to enrich and round out the white children. No one thought about
what it would do,
the damage it would do to the Black children and what being used as a prop does to you. And I didn't have the words for it then, like I'm being used as a prop. This is BS. This is my educational experience too. I'm not here to, educate everybody, but it's a chronic thing. So from elementary school to 38, help enrich me. Well, I'm over here also trying to live my life. Yeah. So I need to decide if I do think these messages are important, when am I going to do it? Am I going to do it one-to-one or one-to-many? So I think one-to-many makes a lot more sense. And then I also think it's really smart for Allison to put out content that you pay for because you're asking for work.
Yep.
because no one ever just says, tell me how you feel and accepts it, unless it's a loved one, maybe.
Yeah.
Everyone else is like, oh, well, why is this a problem? And show me the data and show me the facts and prove it to me. And now I still don't believe you. And you jumped through all those hoops and you did all those things.
Yep.
So, yeah. But I feel better this week. And I feel positive. I feel supported by the allies that do exist. And allyship doesn't have to be perfect. You know, yeah, that's the end of that sentence. I ended it on
it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not about doing the right thing. It's about like continuing to show up. And that's how I would put it. It's kind of like it's like running, right? It's not about the runs that you miss. It's about the ones that you show up for, and thinking about considering showing up again at a time that works for you, because not all people need to show up if they're not ready and they don't mean it. It's almost better to wait until you can come and stay than to show up and find excuses not to come back.
Yeah.
Because there are enough of us that want to do this work and don't mind it. And I know I explained it to you really poorly on the phone that day. I'm like, I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm saying before I put up that big long post, like, I just want you to know I'm going to be doing these things. You don't ever you don't have to engage or respond. You don't have, I will be doing this. I'm not doing it for your benefit. I'm not doing it, but I will warn you that it's there if you're not in this place where you can see it.
Yeah.
Because I understand that there's a power dynamic here, since I technically own all of the company, and I'm aware that there might be an implicit need to respond to things. I want to make it very, very clear, as far as I'm concerned, everyone's kind of operating independently there. Do what you can, and there's never a penalty for not. But if I say something that you're like, hold on, I'm going to be receptive to that feedback. But I had I was torn up and had to walk away from Facebook for about 2 days after I wrote that, because I was anyone who's like, oh, well, she wasn't a runner, because I've seen that justification. Well, I mean, I get behind him because he's a runner. I'm like, were you a runner at 26? Were you? Well, she knew what she was going to be when she grew up. She had a plan, and I'm like, her life is, what if she wasn't? What if she worked at Hardee's? Would you care? Does Hardee's still exist? I miss their peach shakes.
I think it does.
But it's like, how a person serves really shouldn't be related to their value. Right. And I've spoken about that. So I was messed up personally on a number of levels after that, because when that didn't, I can only imagine what it was like for, at this point, you've probably learned to shut it down better than I have, but when it doesn't transfer to another person, that's where I kind of break down a little bit. So, and that was
very frustrating. I just thought it was interesting to hear that it's not for everybody. And I think there are different kinds of good work that people can be doing. Absolutely. And you kind of have to be tuned in to what is the right call for you. So like, there's some people who, like survivors of sexual assault, who do not have the emotional energy to work in that arena. Then there's other people who feel called to do that. And so they should. There's so many things that are wrong in this world.
I had to really pick down my office hours during the Kavanaugh hearings, because all of a sudden, I'm open about a lot of the advocacy work that I do, and I'm on the board of the Blue Bench. I do a lot of fundraising for different organizations and talk about the need and the gap. I am not in a place where I can take people's stories one-on-one in that format. And when my office hours became a confession booth of people not really knowing where to take their feelings, I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I don't offer it now.
It's interesting, because you really have to guard your energy so you can keep doing what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And see, where can you do the most? Where do you maybe get upset, but you don't feel like just completely spent? A friend of mine went out to, I think it was, I should know this, somewhere in Texas, at one of the detainment centers with his law firm that does a lot of pro bono work. And so they continually have been going to the detainment areas to help people apply for asylum. And most of the people who need help are not English speaking. So he goes as a translator. When he came back, he needed weeks of therapy. Just hearing people's trauma, and to even see people retell the trauma with no feeling, because their body has shut so much of that sensitivity down
Yeah.
so that they can keep living.
Mm.
He said that was also like traumatic for someone to sit there and explain to you this very matter-of-fact way how they feared for their life and this family member was murdered and then they were gang raped and then they fled the country and, you know, if they go back, they know they'll be murdered. And it's just like, just to see somebody really young, like with those dead eyes. So yeah, you just have to pick and choose what is the right way for you to contribute and try and make this a better place to be.
And then you got to own that choice and not ask for forgiveness from every person who is doing the work and you're not, or from you. Well, I really wanted to get, but I can't this, like no one needs to ask for your forgiveness. But if you do have a question for Cade,
yes,
let us know.
And I think that's going to be fun because Cade's at an exciting point in the journey.
We've already got 2 pages of questions.
Whoa, great.
And really thoughtful ones too. They're not all, I mean, the questions that I had were really ridiculous. Like, you know, is there like a bag you're going to have to refill, or I don't know. Like, so yeah, they're right. I mean, I don't know. So once I really started thinking about, like, what else don't I know? And
well, yeah. I was looking at a friend of mine. This is well, nobody knows who this guy is. Was researching those permanent implants. So like a lot, those are popular in nursing homes. I've heard from people. And yeah, it's amazing. This is old technology, like World War I technology.
Did you know that like the sex change capital of the United States is in Colorado?
No. I wonder why.
It is a mountain town about 2 hours south of here. I can't remember the name of it, but it's like Beulah land. It's some like religious reference that we drove through once, and we were like,
"That's amazing. That's interesting." Didn't y'all have a trans mayor, or was that some other state near you? I thought y'all had a trans mayor.
I don't think so. Not well. It might be somewhere in the state. It's not Denver.
Okay.
We have a gay mayor. A gay governor.
No, I have to look this up.
Governor Polis.
Maybe that's not even in the right position. I don't even know if it was mayor. That's how I remembered it in my head. I need to look it up. So I'm very excited to hear about somebody else's. It's like everybody's on their hero's journey, right? Like I'm very excited to hear about the process of transitioning. And I'm wondering about access to power and privilege, like what that thought process is like as you transition from one gender presentation to another.
Not an academic, so there's a lot that he might not have processed or thought through yet. Like, what is your relationship to your masculinity now, or to your femininity? I mean,
it might be a minute.
I'm just because I mean, again, asking someone where they are, he's not really ready to teach a class on it, but he. You know, so I'm not just, you can come with questions. We'll talk them all through before they get there, and we can, you know, I'm sure. I mean, we'll have a million things to talk about between now and then, but I want to have a whole series of conversations you can only have on the long run. And I wonder, because if Cade, and this is kind of my final thought, if Cade was not a running buddy, I don't know that I would have a forum to ask these questions, because there's no other. That's what makes running so cool and unusual. You just wait for a long run. And then you bring up all the things that you like. So are you getting divorced? I thought okay, because I hadn't seen her on your Facebook page for a really long time. Okay. You know, like that is where all the difficult questions come up, because you're not in a public place or the real world, right? Because your run friends, you see them once a week, you don't hang out in between, or rather it's kind of rare, right? If I'm seeing you on Saturday, I'm not hanging out with you on Thursday. I'm seeing the people I don't see. So it's anyway, which is not to say we're not real friends. It's just like, well, I already see you the rest of the time as I see everybody else. So it's not that. It's very rare that we're hanging out outside of a run, which is why we don't know what a run or not running looks like. And we're always surprised, like, oh, wait, Abby, that's you? Vanessa, that's you?
That's funny.
I can be in a space with them and totally not recognize them because I'm not used to seeing them that way. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. So the conversations that happen, the information doesn't follow you back to wherever you came from. What happens on the long run stays on the long run.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, because that's a long period of time to be hanging out and then hang out again.
And people love the podcast with you and the Dear White Women podcast, because they were like, I felt like a fly on a wall getting to hear a conversation I otherwise wouldn't get to experience. So I'm like, oh, we could do that. We could do more of that in different topics. Here's one, some conversations that can only happen on the long run. So if anybody watching this can think of any more topics or any more people that we could bring in that would be interesting, maybe we can make this a series. I don't know.
Oh,
I feel like we can work it into running long run conversations. We ain't getting out of this for 90 minutes or until it's finished, whichever comes first.
Well, and then people can turn in too, like things that have happened to them that were major.
Yeah.
They don't typically get to discuss. Maybe it makes people uncomfortable. Like bring your uncomfortable topics.
A safe space to have like dangerous conversations or ask dangerous questions. That's it. A safe space to ask dangerous questions.
That's good. Oh, that's perfect. We could end it right there. And
thank you for the clarity that I've been drinking. It's my sparkling.
Oh, which flavor is this? This isn't ginger. Raspberry.
No, this is not kombucha. This is sparkling seltzer.
Oh, does it taste pretty good?
Yes, it's better than a beer, and it's not quite as alcoholic.
That doesn't get it extra points, but that's good to know.
Well, that I'm a weenie.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can't underestimate how well my liver functions. Not that well.
It's funny because I remember seeing you at She Podcast and thinking like, damn, she must have really gone all in. But you maybe had just like one glass of wine. I don't know.
Yeah, I had one and then sat it down and was like, now I got to walk.
Your face was like all red through here. I was like, oh, that's just in her comfort zone. Okay, that was like one glass of wine.
I was just that excited to be around you, girl. That's it. That's my Dalia face.
Oh, too much. Well, hopefully eventually when you come here, you'll see. Well, we'll get you something light to drink and we'll give you lots of water in between.
And you got a floor I can sleep on. I'll take it. You want something really funny?
What?
We have now been talking for exactly 1 hour and 17 minutes.
Okay, well, we may as well. We can't do any better than this. Well, that's it, everybody.
That's it. Your coach.
That's the only way for us to get it down to a reasonable amount of time. Sorry, go ahead. Wrap it up.
I mean, there's no editor here, right? So thank you for being part of the Quarantine team. If you've enjoyed this in any way, you can hear these conversations by subscribing to the School Nutrition Dietitian podcast or Running Life, the official production of the Fitness Protection Program. Sign up for our mailing list. We'll be putting links out there because the conversation, you don't need a long run to get us talking or even a topic to have something. What we need is a reason. What we need are stopping cues and maybe a muzzle.
That's true. Yeah, we need a producer to be like, okay. I think isn't the standard Southern women chat. Like if you actually have to, this is what we do. My husband's always like, you said you were going to brunch. It's been 5 hours. I'm like, what's your point?
Yeah. Who says brunch has to be before? Yes, we take those patriarchal frameworks elsewhere.
Yeah.
How you broke what I want.
Yeah, that's perfect. Don't try and impress me.
What can't I do in the afternoon?
Well, have a great week, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you so much for your patience and your time as always. Oh my God. And for your good humor.